bring them in. All right. So the way we remember how to say your name, it's Sari Botton, rhymes with Larry Cotton.
That is correct.
Okay. So Sari
Hello,
Botton rhymes with
everybody.
Larry Cotton. Got it. Got it. All right. Welcome, everybody. We are going to get started in just one moment. I am going to hit the mute all button so that you do not have to mute yourself, which means that my co-host and our special guest will have to go ahead and unmute themselves as well. And there's always one that's like randomly unmuted. I'm going to hit the mute all button again. Mute all. Mute all. Awesome. All right, folks, welcome. We are so glad to have you here for the Writer's Bridge. We have a very exciting guest today that we are just super, super happy to have. Someone who is really honoring us with her presence, and we are just delighted to find out everything that she is going to do and everything she's got going on. Is it possible to make a living writing what you love? Can you work both inside and outside traditional publishing? Our guest today has created her own publishing empire. She writes her own amazing work. She publishes and interviews distinguished writers, and she moves seamlessly between platforms. We are going to talk about how she got there and what you can do to build your audience around your mission too. But first, hey, Charla, unmute yourself and let us know what's going on with Craft Talks.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me to unmute myself. I was about to start going. Just a reminder before I talk a little bit about what's coming up in Craft Talks. Do you want to mute all again, Allison?
I will indeed. You'll have to unmute yourself. Got it. There we go.
Great, thank you. If you have a question for today's guest or for Allison or I, please put it in the chat window. We will mark your question with a red question mark symbol, but please don't use that. You don't have to add it. Don't use it. And I'm not asking for a follow-up question. We're just using that to stay organized, because once it's answered, we remove the red question mark, but we can't remove it if you put it on it. So it's to be a really great help if you just avoid the red question mark. So great. I'll tell you about tomorrow. Tomorrow we have a fantastic webinar with Ira Suk-Rungrang on Voice in Memoir, The Fallacy of One Voice, The Fractured Self in Memoir. And starting March 5th, we have Ethan Gilsdorf, one of our most popular instructors, offering an 8-week workshop, Finding and Telling Your Personal Story. And for those looking for feedback and a supportive environment, that 8 weeks includes in-class workshopping and feedback from Ethan as your instructor. I'll pop those into the chat. Allison, what's coming up for you? Don't forget to talk about AWP.
Oh, yes. Thank you. So part of my mission is creating work at all price levels because I really like it when everyone can play. Coming up, I am going to be offering a seminar on creating live and virtual retreats that pay. That one's $299, though honestly, you will make that back with my very best business tips on how to create meaningful retreats. I am also doing a pay what you can webinar with Mission Belonging, who are an organization for creative projects with military veterans and with non-veterans. Everyone is welcome. That's in April, and that is Find Your Publishing Path in 2026, where we are going to talk all about the different ways that you can publish and what you personally might like to do. We want to encourage you all, please do drop into the chat. Where are you coming from and what are you writing? We would love to know a little bit more. Hey, Charla, will you introduce our guest?
Yes, I'm very excited to. Sari Botton's memoir, an essay, and you may find yourself Confessions of a Late Blooming Gen X Weirdo, was chosen by Poets and Writers magazine for the 2022 edition of its annual 5 over 50 feature. An essay from it received notable mention in the Best American Essays 2023, edited by Vivian Gornick. For 5 years, she was the essays editor at Longreads. She edited the best-selling anthologies Goodbye to All That, Writers on Loving and Leaving New York, and Never Can Say Goodbye, Writers on Their Unshakable Love for New York. She publishes Oldster Magazine, Memoir Land, and Adventures in Journalism. She was the writer in residence in the creative writing department at SUNY New Paltz for spring 2023. Welcome, Sari.
Welcome, Sari Botton. Sari, we are so amazingly glad to have you here. Now, I have been following your work for years now, and I keep watching you grow more and more influential in the creative nonfiction space. You have built Oldster Magazine, Memoir Land, Adventures in Journalism, and you've published traditionally. What came first, and how have all your platforms come together? Unmute yourself and tell us.
Okay. Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me, and thank you to all of you for coming. It's so thrilling to have a group of interested people to talk to and such wonderful hosts. And Allison, I've been following you forever as well. So, likewise. Um, Okay, so for the early part of my career, my very early career when I was still in college. I had a really good break. I got an internship at Newsday and New York Newsday, and they threw me on the arts desk, and I had a summer of being an arts journalist, and it was amazing. And then after that, I got myself stuck in a trade publishing rut. I was at various publications at Fairchild, Women's Wear Daily, the Daily News Record, Home Furnishings Network, and I could not get myself out of it. And so I became obsessed with publishing personal essays, publishing interviews, articles in mainstream publications. So while I worked full time at my trade jobs, I started doing a second job of trying to break out. And that was the beginning of well, it wasn't really the beginning of my juggling, because when I was in college, I put myself through college and I often worked like three part-time jobs. I've been a juggler my whole life. Both my parents were jugglers. It's just what we had to do. And so that was the beginning for me. And so that's when I began breaking into the New York Times through the city section and Metro. Um, and so I've always had these sort of tandem, like day jobs, trade magazines, ghostwriting, book coaching, that kind of thing. And then, like, what I think of as my real job, which is like editing the personal essays I'm interested in about, on topics that really matter to me, like New York City and aging. And then there's like the top tier of that is my own writing, which I still don't leave enough time for. Um, but I need to do my day jobs. So, but
Yeah.
I do wish I had a little more time to work on my own writing, and I'm going to need to make some time for it coming up.
I definitely can feel that pain point, for sure. Who do you see as your audience, and how deliberately do you cultivate that audience? Was there a point where you started doing that on purpose?
I don't really think of it that way. If I started thinking about, okay, who do I want to reach? It would be sort of backwards for me. I come from the perspective of, what am I curious about? What is gnawing at me? And I learned early on that if something is really coming up for me again and again, there are other people for whom it is coming up. And also, I think of the work I do as gathering voices around a subject that I am curious about, obsessed with. And there's a natural audience. If I'm obsessed, other people are obsessed, and that's that's always worked for me.
I love that. I absolutely love that. So this sounds like we're getting close to this idea of mission. Now, like me, I have a mission. It sounds kind of dorky. I have never found a better word than facilitate, but my mission is I want to facilitate the experience of joy and enlightenment. And like the
Mm.
purpose of having this as a mission is whenever I'm looking at what am I going to do, then I have to ask, oh, hey, is this is this part of my mission? Is it going to facilitate joy and enlightenment? Is it going to make somebody happier? Is it going to make somebody smarter? And if it's not, then there's not really a reason for me to do it. Do you have a mission? What would you say your mission is?
Well, each publication has a different mission. I mean, I think there's an umbrella mission that applies to both publications, but maybe more to Memoir Land, which is fostering greater understanding among people through the sharing of true personal stories. At Oldster, there's the additional mission of exploring what it means to travel through time in a human body at every phase of life. And also to destigmatize and normalize aging by showing that it's happening to everyone throughout life.
Yeah, that's great. Has publishing your own work on your own terms changed your relationship to writing?
Absolutely. 100%. Um, I'm an industry professional. I've been doing this for literally 40 years. And so I trust my skills as an editor. Of course, it's good to have someone edit your piece who is not you. And I do have people I share my work with, but I think I'm a pretty good editor even of my own work. Um, and yeah, publishing myself, it makes me I'm less concerned with, oh, should I say this? Should I not say this? I really know how to present my work in a good way, I think. Um, and it's given me a lot of freedom. It's really freed me up. It's funny, right now I'm working on a piece for a major publication, and I'm already having that icky, a little bit of that icky, like women's magazine experience that I had many years ago when I used to write for women's magazines. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, if this gets worse, I'm going to pull it and publish it myself because I know it's good. And I know that there's this like weird dynamic that has been written about many times. It's not just me. And, I'll publish it myself if they're not going to, work with me in a way that's respectful and, um, you know, makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that's a really good way to go because you're at a stage in your career where the gatekeepers are not as relevant as they used to be because
Exactly.
yeah, because I hit a place where I considered self-publishing my book Seven Drafts because I thought I would make more money if I did. And realistically, I probably would make more money if I did. But I was at a stage in my career where I needed a traditional publishing credit to build my resume and add to my
Yes.
credibility. And it feels like you've moved beyond that. You've created your own credibility.
Maybe, maybe. I hope so. But I'll also tell you that I regret every single time that I caved to an editor at a women's magazine or a traditional magazine to fit in with their voice, to tone down. I regret every one of those. There was an essay I published in 2000 in Marie Claire where Glenda Bailey made me, she made it a deal breaker that I accept all these horrible, horrible edits. And the result is that I'm so glad that you can't find this essay anywhere unless you go to the New York Public Library and find the printed bound, edition of the magazine. I have never been happy when I have caved. And so I'm a better judge of, and people are happier with the things that I publish on my own than they are with the things that I've published, elsewhere, where I've done a lot of caving.
I remember you writing about that Marie Claire piece in your adventures in journalism. And I sure did go look to see if I could find it. We have a great question from Carrie in the chat that I think ties into this as well. What happens when the gatekeepers try to get you to change your content? Like, what does that process actually look like? They want things
Ugh.
cut or revised in ways that you aren't comfortable. Like, how did that process go? Did she just look at you and go, either you change it or no check?
Yeah, literally. Well, I mean, first of all, let me say that those experiences made me a better editor. I work very collaboratively with people. I do not change things unless I really feel they need to be changed. And I always give people the opportunity to negotiate with me. Um, and what I try to impress upon them, I'm not being a jerk. I'm actually trying to improve this. I'm trying to make it so that you will have a better experience of being read. And that I've been doing this for 40 years, you know. Um, but with those major magazines, first of all, there's always been this sort of like power struggle between these like editors at the gatekeepers at the major magazines. It feels like a power struggle. And with Glenda Bailey, there was one edit in particular that I absolutely hated and it didn't resonate. And she said to me, it's a deal breaker. And I was, it was the year 2000. I was 35. It was like a big, big clip for me, and I caved, and then it led to me getting a cease and desist letter from my husband and his lawyer, my ex-husband. And it wasn't what I wanted to say anyway. It was not what I meant. And what I found with in those situations was they wanted to fit my voice into theirs, erase my voice and make it, just consistent with their publication's voice, and also bring it to the lowest common denominator. Make it something that, the broadest possible audience will find resonant. But I don't think that's really true. I think that, there's been a lot of shifting in personal essays and voice. Feel like in the last, I don't know, 20 years, there's been an advance where, there's more respect for the author's voice and more interest in interesting voices and perspectives. But when I was coming up, that wasn't true. It was like, how do I make myself fit into Mademoiselle self,
Mhm.
and the ways that I contorted myself, and then I had to contort myself more.
So,
And then I never
sorry.
wanted to show anybody the clip.
Yeah, when you say contort yourself, it reminds me actually. I spent years as a circus performer, as I think a lot
Oh,
of people here know, and we got to do street performing that we loved, that paid reasonably well, but not necessarily consistently. And we also got to do corporate events. And corporate events are, well, actually, we'd really like you to do it to this song, and can you
right,
please
right.
wear yellow and black because it goes with the logo? And you're going to hide in
Exactly.
the ceiling while everybody walks in, and then you're going to shoot down and pull off Rolex watches and hand them to the salespeople of the year. And we're like, sure, that check has 5 zeros on it. Let's go, baby. And so, do you find that it's worth it? Or maybe it's not the same in writing because we don't get checks with as many zeros on them. Is it worth it to do a little selling out for the sake of subsidizing the work you love doing?
Yes, it is. The truth is, this piece that I'm doing that I'm going to get $600 for, I would probably, if I published it on Oldster, I would probably bring in so many new subscribers that it would pay me more than that. Um, but to have a byline with a link to Oldster from a mainstream publication is worthwhile because that's going to bring me new subscribers. So, you know, um, it's a trade-off, but I do want to occasionally have bylines and links to my publications outside because that brings more people in. It's funny because I got this assignment. Um, I was thinking, oh, I should find some way to pitch this place and that place, and then I got an email from an editor saying, "We love Oldster. Would you like to write for us?" I said, "Yeah," and we went back and forth, and we came up with this idea, and it's going okay, but I'm already getting that, "Bleh," I don't like that. Um, so we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. I hope the rest of it goes a little better. I also, another major publication reached out to me a year ago, and the editor was like, "We love Oldster. Do you want to pitch us?" I was like, "Okay." I hate pitching, by the way. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're going to reach out to somebody like that, you know, um, from a major publication and it's a service uh, section, assign me something. Don't ask me to pitch you. And then so I pitched 3 times, and each time it was just like a nope, nope, nope. And then yeah, it's a long story. And I'm like, I'm not trying again. No.
Right, right. I have a question about your memoir. Your book, And You May Find Yourself, is a memoir told in essays rather than a linear narrative. How did you decide that was the right container for this particular story? And what does the essay form allow that a traditional narrative, like long form narrative, doesn't?
Okay, I not only read a lot of memoirs and run a publication about memoirs, but I also have been a ghostwriter of memoirs. And what I have learned is that unless a memoir is about a very specific turn of events that has within it its an own natural engine of storytelling that most memoirs that aren't like that, they're kind of boring because all the connective tissue that is necessary to take a life and put it together, it can be really boring. It's really hard unless, like, Wild, she's writing about a trip she took. It is very much about that trip, and it has its own engine in it because of that. Nick Flynn, Another Bullshit Night in Suck City. It's a story about meeting his father at a homeless shelter where he's working, and everything else that's in there is in service of that turn of events.
Mhm.
When you have memoirs that are from a period of someone's life and there are all these different stories, the stuff that you do, I've done it as a ghostwriter to put it all together. It makes it in an unnatural form. Not in every case, but in most cases. So I love the personal essay, and I also love reading in bits. I like something that someone can read a portion of this week and the next week read a different portion and each time walk away with a complete thought. It's a preference. And I also was so a third of the essays in the book had been published before. They've been all updated, revamped, but still, I knew that I had these pieces that I wanted to collect, and I also wanted to write more of them. And it's my favorite way of sharing memoir. It's the unit in which I feel most comfortable expressing myself and reading.
Yeah, there is a question we had in the chat. Oh, it just bumps away from me. When do you know a memoir is best written in essay form or or as a novel? I think they're saying in the traditional sense. Is
Yeah.
there
How do you pick? How do you know what the form should be?
Um, I think a good guideline is like, is this about a period in your life or is it about a turn of events? Is it a memoir that is the story of an experience, a particular focused experience, or is it about a period of your life? Now, all memoirs are, as opposed to an autobiography, they're about an aspect of a life. Um, in this case, and I didn't know the lens until I was working on it, that it's really kind of a later in life coming of age memoir and also about um, learning about who I really was later in life. Um, so I actually wound up leaving a lot out because they didn't fit that lens. But I couldn't have known that until I started working on it and writing things. There are whole pieces I wrote for that book that did not go in, um, because they didn't fit the lens. So I can't really even imagine writing this book as a straight memoir. I can't. And it's about various times in my life and ways in which I was trying to be someone I'm not and trying to figure out who I was. But each instance is different and a different story, and there are similarities, but it just doesn't fit the straight memoir narrative model to me anyway.
Your subtitle names you as a late blooming Gen X weirdo, for which it makes me happy every time I see that. And a lot of your work focuses on writers emerging at a later stage or reckoning with their older selves. I know we have author Jim Flaherty here today who has written about being 90 and telling us that 90 is the new 80. He is a very sparkly man who just like lights up the room every time he comes in. Um, what drew you to the idea of late blooming, to the idea of reckoning with ourselves as older people?
Well, I mean, I've been reckoning with it my whole life. I mean, one of the impetuses for starting Oldster magazine was my own anxiety about being a late bloomer, being behind the curve on a lot of things. I was also ahead of the curve on certain things. I was the first kid in my kindergarten class to read, but I was the last girl in gym class to, grow boobs and have a period. I was the last girl to get a boyfriend. I've had this anxiety my entire life about being off schedule. And
Mm.
so I'm really interested in learning that other people have that feeling too. The work I do that I think of as collecting voices around a subject, it's very much around a subject that I have anxiety about. It was the same with Goodbye to All That and Never Can Say Goodbye. I've felt so conflicted about leaving New York. Um, and I wanted to know, well, what is everybody else thinking? All the
Mm.
people who left, what about the people who left and are happy to go? What about the people who left but wish they could go back? The same thing with aging. Like, what is everybody else feeling about? Like, do they match up with their peers? Like, it comes from a not just a curiosity, but an anxiety.
Right. You mentioned voices. You spent years editing other people's essays at long reads and through your anthologies. How has that shaped or complicated your own writing voice?
Not at all. Um, I uh I have a good internal boundary with that. And also I've been working on my voice for 40 years. And I finally, I mean, of course everybody's voice evolves, but like I know my voice and I don't I don't take on other people's voices. It's interesting because my memoir is partly about pretending I'm other people, but I've come to a place where I really know my voice as a writer, and there's a truth to it that I don't abandon on
I love
principle.
that. I
Thanks.
love that. So, on a purely practical note, Sari, how much time does this all take? Like, obviously, this is your full time job. Your day job is writer, which is so awesome, which I love. But
Writer and editor.
you're running three publications while also writing your own work. It's a huge logistical and creative challenge. How do you protect your own writing life from being consumed by the editorial work? What does your work week actually look like?
So first of all, I'm working like 70, 80 hour weeks. Yeah. I'm publishing two magazines on Substack, one of which publishes 5 days a week, and one of which publishes 4 to 5, depending on the week.
Wow.
Um, and uh, it's a lot of work. As I said, I've been a juggler my entire life. Now, Adventures in Journalism, I publish once or twice a month, and it's really just like my personal blog. And I don't put like subscribe buttons on it usually. Um,
It's my favorite because it feels the
oh,
most like we're really talking to you.
oh, thank you. It's sort of my like behind the scenes. I let a little steam off and tell the truth. Um, but uh, I've been juggling my whole life, and this is the best juggling situation to date. I mean, when I think about how I used to simultaneously write as a freelancer, adjunct, teach as an adjunct in MFA programs, and also coach people and ghostwrite their books. I mean, I was juggling so many heavily intensive, brain intensive jobs. Uh, and now I am still doing that, but I'm doing it in a way that is satisfying to me. Um, I really love both jobs. And so um, I'm going to keep doing it. It's working out. It is absolutely my day job. It is my full-time job. Um, and it makes me happy. It makes me it satisfies me. Now, in terms of my own writing, I don't really have enough time for my own writing. I haven't been great about protecting my own writing time. One thing I have done recently is I published a personal essay that I wrote this summer. It's called All the Young Dudes, and it's about an experience I had last winter where at 59, I went to Superiority Burger for dinner in the East Village, and I sat at the bar and it's dark in there. And a 27-year-old guy sitting next to me tried to pick me up. And it was so counter to everything I'd been told, and also counter to what a particular ex used to say to me about how I was going to be invisible when I grew up, but he was going to be able to get girls. And I was going to pitch it. I've published two modern love essays, and I was going to pitch it to Dan Jones. I mean, I do know people who've published three, but I thought, would he even, I know he only does 50 a year, and then I decided to publish it myself, and it was really popular. It has like 650 likes or something like that. And a lot of people shared it, and people wrote to me and they were like, "Why isn't your voice more prominent on Oldster? Why is it always everybody else? Where are you?" And
Mm.
so I started, like back in August or September, I started a new series called Letter from the Editor, where I muse on various aspects of getting older. It's every Thursday, and my readers really love it. And so it's giving me the opportunity to sort of, you know, play with my writing voice. And I don't go too deeply into things, and it also makes me think, oh, I could revisit this in a deeper way down the road in another essay collection for a magazine. So it was really nice to have people write and say, why do we only hear from you with your voice once in a blue moon?
Mm. Yeah, I
So
love that. Yeah, yeah. You sent regular email newsletters before Substack existed. When did you start on Substack, and have you found
did
it better?
I did I
I think you did. I feel like I was on Oldster, and I feel like I was on Memoir Land before Substack existed.
No,
No?
that's not, no.
Oh,
Um, well, what you might have done, so okay, my first foray on Substack was like 2018, maybe, with Adventures in Journalism while I was at Long Reads. It was just like my little blog. Um, I did leave Substack for 6 months because in solidarity with the trans community.
Mm.
There were some people on Substack who were harassing members of the trans community, and Substack wasn't doing anything. Um, and so I went to Button Down for 6 months, and maybe that's what you're remembering. It was a bad
maybe.
technological experience. And then after 6 months, I started to see queer and trans people saying, you know what? We're not going to cede our ground. Substack may never do anything about it, and they won't. They won't. And there are a few Nazis. There aren't nearly as many Nazis as the people outside of Substack are
Right now,
saying.
it feels like all platforms have a strand of poison in them. There is
People
no
are going on
non-poisoned platform.
People are going on Facebook and Twitter to say that Substack has Nazis, and I'm like, I got news for you.
Right.
But after trans and queer people started to say, you know what, we're going back to Substack. It's still the best place to make money, and we're not giving up our space. I went back. Of course, a person tried to cancel me for it, and that sucked. But I went back. When did I go back? Oh, I went back when I started Oldster in August of 2021, and it was good, and it is good, and I'm there.
It feels
That's
like
that's lovely. Sorry, go ahead, Charla.
I was gonna say, it feels like Ulster's been around so much longer since it's had such an impact. I just wanted to say that.
Oh, thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been around since August 31st, 2021, coming up on 5 years.
Love it. I absolutely love it. So we have a question in the chat that I am curious to get your take on as well.
Okay.
Marisa says that she once had an edit that she was comfortable with the edit of the piece, but it was for a print publication. And the editor said she wasn't allowed to know the title because, as a matter of principle and editorial independence, we keep the headline to ourselves before publication. She was then not happy with the title. As the editor for the Brevity blog, I consistently retitle everything, and I usually do it about 10 minutes before I actually publish it to try and
Oh,
make it as clickable as possible. And Marissa follows up with, why can't the writer have input? And Anne, who I know has been a journalist, points out on deadline, it's hard to get back in touch on time. My personal version is, and I say this with great love in my heart, most writers don't know shit about what gets clicks. They do not know how to title their frickin' pieces. And I say that as someone who, like, I had all these awesome imagistic titles for my blogs in like 2013, 2014, and now I'm going back and making them like searchable titles that people would actually look for. Sorry, Sari, Larry Cotton, you write your own headlines all the time. Do you ever get pushback from writers? Do you write the headlines? Do you do a better job at it? What is your position on the titles that are inflicted upon us?
That is part of the collaboration. I collaborate with authors on the titles. They come to me with titles. They're very adamant, and I say, no one's clicking on that. And the best example, the very best example, let me show you. This is the very best example. Michelle Philgate came to me with an essay for long reads. She entitled it Lacuna. And it was about being sexually abused by her stepfather and how her mother wouldn't talk to her. It just glossed over it, glossed over it. And I said, and it was an essay she had been workshopping for 14 years. She had been everywhere, Tin House, everywhere with this essay. She came to me with this essay. We worked on it, and then I went back to her and I said, okay, we need a new title because nobody is clicking on Lacuna. Also, Lacuna doesn't tell us anything about what this essay is about. It is being published on a website. If it were in a book, great, but that's a whole other experience, an essay in a book or a magazine in your lap. And even the New Yorker has different headlines for the same piece online and in the magazine.
Yes. And when I read Slate, and our very own Jocelyn Jane Cox, who's here today, just had a wonderful essay in Slate supporting her memoir. Slate will consistently retitle their headlines like
Yes.
over 3 or 4 days, where I click through and I'm like, wait, I already read this.
New York Magazine does it too to make it seem new. I will not title something without the author's approval. I will, I think it's really important. I I came up in newspapers and magazines where the copy desk puts the title on. I hate the title of My First Modern Love. It does not fit the piece. I am against that. So I collaborate with authors on the title. So Michelle and I went back and forth and back and forth. And she kept saying, but are you sure we can't keep Lacuna? What if we just had a good subhead? I said, no, no, no. Forget Lacuna. Not happening. So together we came up with What My Mother and I Don't Talk About. The piece went viral and it led to this anthology, a best-selling anthology. So
Because
I know.
nobody has a lacuna, but everybody has stuff they don't talk about with their mom.
Exactly. And then it led to the follow-up book, which is over there. What My Father and I Don't Talk About. It's like a whole franchise for her. Lacuna would not have gotten her that franchise.
There you go.
Exactly.
There you go.
And she tells this
Exactly.
story. She tells this story when she goes out on book events. She's like, thank you, Sari Botton, for keeping me from calling this Lacuna. So
I love that. Let's try and get to some more questions in the chat here. We have some fabulous questions in the chat. We really appreciate it that you guys are here, that you are asking us for stuff. Tiffany says she is fascinated by this idea of visiting the topics that you're obsessed about. She often feels like she's stuck and that she has a few topics that she just can't seem to walk away from. Sari, have you been riffing on the same things for 40 years? How have those ideas evolved with time?
So the first thing is when I lead workshops, what I find is there are some people that no matter how you prompt them, the same story is going to come out or some version of it. They need to, and often they're avoiding writing about it, and that's the reason it is occluding everything else. So I say, write the damn thing, even if you're not going to publish it. Get it out of you. So you're pregnant with it. You can't be pregnant with anything else while this thing is in there. get it out, write it. You have no idea what will come out of you writing about it. Avoiding writing about it keeps it in one version. So you got to write about it. Um, this weekend, I went to a writing retreat led by Alex O'Dare. She wrote a memoir called Don't Call Me Home. Um, and she prompted us, and I went right back to my parents' freaking divorce. And I just posted a piece on Adventures in Journalism about how, like, I cannot get past this thing. Now, I have other topics I write about. And I was like beating myself up, but it was a very specific thing. She told us to focus on an object, and I wound up focusing on a particular car my dad had after my parents split up. And I was beating myself up, like, why am I writing about I'm 60, why am I writing about the divorce that started when I was 10? And then, but everybody was like, "Oh, I love this. I love the specifics of the car. I love the," and it was an aspect of it I had never written about before. So maybe I'm the person who a lot of times writes about different aspects of my parents' divorce.
Right.
I let myself write about that. I can also make room for other things to come through me.
Right.
I think, look, Cheryl Strayed has written so many versions of the story of her relationship with her mother. Um, there are so many different angles and aspects of that story, and it keeps coming through. And they're all good and they're all interesting and they all add to the conversation. So, you know, it's okay. Give yourself permission to write those things and also know that they might be that those writings might make room for other things to come through.
Yeah, I tell my students that, write what it's okay if you continue to rewrite about the same topic, or if you keep returning to it because you don't know, you might be building a collection. You might be building a work
Yeah,
that, and it's also don't worry about themes because if you're writing about what you care about, those themes are going to just immediately emerge no matter what genre
yeah,
you're writing in.
yeah.
You can't get away from it. Sherry has a question in the chat. Is juggling lots of jobs helpful for getting a consensus of what people are thinking about or wanting to read? Is this what one needs to do? Be working 70 hours? Are we promoting 70 hours a week? What are some benefits of it?
I mean, well, it allows me to, publish lots of different voices and subjects. I mean, even just the Memoir Monday roundup that publishes on Mondays, I'm constantly reading people's work and I'm learning about different aspects. I'm learning about different literary publications that exist. Um, it keeps me current and it gives me a breadth of awareness. And so I think it's good. I mean, I don't know how else to live. So this is just how I operate.
I love that. I love that. We have a question from Robin, and she asks, "Why do you think we need a big five publisher instead of a hybrid? With memoirs being so difficult to sell, it puts memoirists into a bad corner." I don't think we do advocate that you need a big five publisher.
Well,
Um, if someone's looking to publish their memoir, what paths should they be looking for?
okay. I have an interview with Emma Tortolo that went up Friday on Memoirland, where we talk about her choosing to publish her debut novel with a hybrid publisher, She Writes Press. And we go through like what are the advantages, what are the disadvantages. Now, Emma is someone who, when she was part of the Emin Lowdown at New York Magazine, published many sex advice books with her partner Lorelei with major publishers. So she figured, oh, I'm writing my novel, a big five publisher is going to buy my book, and she couldn't sell it. And long story short, she wound up going with She Writes. She's had a great experience. She talks about the advantages. I am all for hybrid publishers. And also, I published my memoir with a tiny, tiny micro press. I had a hard time getting a memoir deal. Um, I also I had an agent who I was not well aligned with. She is a great agent, but for different authors. She became my agent because we had a friend in common, someone she represented, and she was like, okay, sure, I'll take Sari, but we weren't a fit. And by the time I was pitching my memoir, it was too late for me to start over with somebody else. So I had somebody who didn't really get me or my memoir taking it out. That was not good. But also, it's a really, really, really hard market. And so I learned about Heliotrope, very, very tiny publisher in the East Village. I got a very small advance. The good thing is I earned it out in a year. And now I make money on the book. I've had a really good experience also because one of my biggest obstacles was worrying about upsetting people, either with information about me that I didn't want them to know or revealing other people. That was like like I spent 15 years driving myself crazy about it. For that reason, I love being with a little tiny press, a little underground tiny press. You know, I look at like someone like Jen Romolini, whose book I loved, Ambition Monster. It it blew up her relationship with her parents. Um, I think, my my relationship with my dad has been tenuous, for a lot of my adult life. We've had a lot of issues where I've written about him before, and I did write some things about my parents in this book, but knowing that it didn't, it wasn't this huge thing reviewed by the Times, it was better for me. It was sort of, uh, I'm a Libra and I like to both do things and not do things at the same time. It was the best of both worlds. I published my memoir and I didn't blow up everyone's life.
Right, right. Paula has a question about agents because you mentioned working with an agent. How many essays do you need to have published before you can pitch your book to agents? Do you think there's a percentage?
I don't know if there's a number. I mean, sometimes people get agents off of one modern love essay or,
Right.
something like that. I don't think there's a formula for it. I think don't go get an agent until you have a proposal that you feel really good about. And if you publish a personal essay that goes viral and it's in a big place, you might get pitched by agents. But I'll also tell you that when my first Modern Love came out in 2007, I got agents reaching out to me, but for the wrong thing. So that one is about how people had been trying to get me use the book The Rules in dating, and
Oh, yeah.
I hated it. I just hated it.
Long
And
hair. We're all supposed to have long hair and we're supposed to laugh at their jokes, but not be funny.
exactly. So I've
Yes.
got, that in the piece I interrogate some of the things and then but anyway, the agents and editors who approached me wanted me to write a funny anti-rules dating book. I didn't want to write a funny anti-rules dating book.
Right.
That was like, again, like it's like a women's magazine thing, like the lowest common denominator. That's not what I wanted to do. I wanted to write a memoir. So I did not take any of those opportunities.
Right. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Jana has a great question. What if you have no long history in publication? You have not been like publishing essays or anything like that. You don't have any connections in publishing. Where do you start in terms of getting your memoir out into the world?
Yeah, community is really important, literary community. You have to become a literary citizen if you don't have another way of, and also it's not just it's not just a cynical use of the community. It's you want to be part of this community. And the literary community cheers each other on and helps each other out. Um, that is how you kind of start building awareness of yourself. Uh, I mean, also, you just try and publish. If you publish a really great essay somewhere, whether or not you have clips, like if you pitch one of these columns that takes freelance submissions, you might catch some eyes. But it's still important to have literary community. It's also just fun. It's nice knowing people who do what you do and sharing resources and cheering each other on. And if you cheer some people on, they'll cheer you back. Twitter used to be a really good place for building that. It's not anymore. Blue Sky is okay. I think Substack Notes is a really good place for that right now.
I agree. Yeah, I have found a lot of traction in Substack notes in that way where I recognize people and can have ongoing conversations with them in the way that I used to be able to have on Twitter, and that's just not a thing anymore. Um, how many of us should be starting a newsletter? Do you think it's important? That's when I teach classes on platform, I always say the number one thing you need is an email list because it's the only platform that nobody can take away from you. Do you agree? And does it also benefit our creative process?
I love, love, love the newsletter format. I really enjoy Adventures in Journalism. While I was at Long Reads, I started it in like 2018, Adventures in Journalism, and I left Long Reads in June of 2020. And it was this great little place for me to reconnect with my voice and to reconnect with ideas, and have people read them, to like rebuild the part of me that's a writer. Um, I did publish some of my own personal essays at Long Reads, but the greater part of my job was editing other people. So, I love newsletters. I love reading them and I love publishing them. Adventures in Journalism also like the idea, like I try to publish there once or twice a month, but it's helped me rebuild what I had when I worked at newspapers, which was the ability to just jump in, synthesize an idea and publish it. Like just get in, get out, say some things, you know. So I think it's a great thing. And you build an email list. Um, it doesn't have to be huge. You could do it once a week, you could do it once a month, but it's nice to have. It's also kind of a calling card.
Right. Sherry asked, do you recommend adjunct teaching as a job that helps being a writer?
Oh God, no.
I wouldn't either because a friend of mine, and she will go nameless to protect her privacy. But a dear friend of mine was saying, I'm teaching as an adjunct. I'm making, 3,500 a semester or something like that. I'm putting in 20 hours a week between class and grading. And I said, nameless writer, you could make $3,500 in 1 week editing one manuscript for one author. Why are you wasting your time being unappreciated as an adjunct?
Yeah, I thought that adjuncting was going to lead me in the direction of maybe a position, a higher position, benefits. I did enjoy teaching, but it is such a ridiculous proposition. It is exploitation. And it is not good for your own writing. I often see posts by my colleagues who are adjuncting saying that everything they have to do in support of, just to support themselves, including adjuncting, makes it so they can't write. If you can avoid adjuncting, avoid it, you know? It's
Yeah.
good
And
credit
that
that I
said,
have, but
yeah. It's nice to have the teaching credit. It sometimes can get you some health insurance.
yeah,
It sometimes can get you a physical office or a set of colleagues that can be
right.
valuable. But if you are at all inclined to freelance, it is almost always more worth it to work for yourself. And that kind of brings me to my last question for you. So I think I might have the same thing as you, where I am a classic do too many things person. Like, I have a really hard time processing that the answer to could I do a good job at this and should I take this on right now, they're not the same question.
Yeah.
How do you choose what to take on and what do you say no to?
I'm learning to say no a little bit more. Unfortunately, I still too often say yes and then go back and say, oops, sorry. I I overestimated how much time I have, or um no is not easy for me to say, but I am getting better at it. I uh I'm in a position where something is working well and I don't want to do anything to jeopardize it. And so it requires a lot of hard work. It's also a nice distraction from the hell that we are all living through right now. Oh, the world's terrible. Let me throw my brain into this. Um, but I do need to have some better boundaries. In fact, just today, yesterday, the Pew Research Center sent me news about a new report on aging. And I was like, ah, great. They said it's embargoed until 10 o'clock on Thursday. I said, I'll publish about it at 10:30 on Thursday. And, blah, blah, blah. And then this morning I woke up, I said, what is wrong with me? I already have too many things this week. And I went back to them and I said, I'm going to write about this 2 weeks from now. And they were like, oh, that's totally fine. But like, I was like, what if they are mad? What, who cares if they're mad? They're the Pew Center. They'll be okay. They'll live, you know. But so I haven't worked this out, is what I'm saying. You know, I need to work this out because I need a little more time to myself, a little more time to decompress, and more time to write.
So we're going to backtrack super briefly because our co-host Charla is also an adjunct faculty member, a damn good one. Charla, give us your perspective. Tell us we're jerks.
I don't think anyone's a jerk. I think you made very good points about the stress of adjuncting. I mean, I've been doing it for, I don't even want to say over 27 years, maybe. But I would say that there is benefits of working with writers and encouraging them to think about their writing and building a language and responding to work, especially if you don't have to do that as an adjunct. You could do that as a community workshop. You could do it as freelance and make money at it, or you could do it as like a service if you want,
Oh,
that experience. It's
I
brilliant
love
that way.
teaching. I love
Yeah,
teaching.
I think
And
it's
I was
brilliant that
teaching at
way.
Catapult and I've sometimes taught on my own. I love teaching, but
I love teaching too. I just don't want to do it for a
the
university.
adjunct model is
Yeah.
exploitative
Oh,
in
for
my
sure.
experience.
Yeah. I mean, I make a lot more money at University of Pitt, I think because the union's involved.
Okay.
But I have been in exploitive models for sure. But yes, it's all balance. It's like if
Yeah.
you're like teaching and you're realizing you're not writing and you want to write more, then you just teach less. Like that, I think that's part of it, you know. It's basically
Absolutely.
for sure.
I teach like four workshops a year. I'm going to be teaching in Vermont at the Southern Vermont Writers Conference in April. There's like 3 spots left if anybody wants to look that up. Um, I'm teaching a personal essay workshop there. It's 1 week. I'm getting paid more than I would get paid teaching one adjunct class, and I'm teaching for 1 week.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. I love it. I love it. So, in just a moment, we are going to share with you all our top tips. We are each going to give you one thing that you can do today to work towards your own writing and publishing goals in line with your mission. But before we do that, we want to remind you all, please join us at the Craft Talks webinar tomorrow on voice in memoir. Please join us please join me for my class on on directing your own retreats, whether virtual or live. And we also want to invite you to join us at AWP. We will be at booth number 353 in the book fair all weekend long. We'll have with us literary agent Jessica Berg, who many of you have met in our pitch and platform series. And we will be giving free feedback and advice on queries. And then you will get to pitch Jessica and you will get feedback from an agent on your query. This is entirely free. We would love to see you. And even if you don't want to play, please do just come and say hello. We would love to have you. Do also join us for our next episode where we have a panel of writers who have recently published memoirs that intersect in some way with their regular lives. And they're going to talk about more than a writer, how the rest of your life influences your book and helps your writing. So, 3 things that you can do today are very top tips. Hey, Charla, what's something they can do today to build their platform with their audience in line with their mission, love their writing? It's been a wide-ranging conversation.
Right. I mean, I would say when we're talking about being a literary citizen, one thing that, I always think about is writing reviews and responding to writers of work that you love. One is much easier, I think, just sending an email to a writer and saying, I love what you wrote and starting up that conversation. We don't hear that much from people, so it's always really, I think, helpful. But writing reviews is a great way of getting bylines if you're looking for them, and being part and also analyzing writing on a way of like analytical way, thinking about what works well and what doesn't, but also just to be participating. So that's my suggestion. Think if that's something that you're thinking, oh, I would like to get more involved. How could I do that? That might be an option for you.
I love that. Sari, what's your top tip for us to take away today?
Uh, Challenge yourself to write to a timer longhand, to write something that you've been struggling to write. Just sit down, set a timer, write it longhand where you can't bring the editor into the room. There's no room. You have to write it like this. Just surprise yourself that way.
I love that. What a beautiful creative adventure. And we talked a lot about titles today. Take a look at your book or in progress or your latest essay or your latest story or your latest poem or your latest article and write down 5 possible titles and ask yourself, why would someone click on this one? Then show it to a friend who doesn't know very much about writing and ask them what they would click on. You can also take this into your Substack notes, do it as a little survey, take it into your social media. It's a wonderful way to interact with other people that feels low stress and is kind of fun. Sari, you are one of the most amazing people in the creative
Oh,
nonfiction space. You publish Oldster, you publish Memoir Land, you publish Adventures in Journalism. You have an amazing memoir that has been out for a while and is absolutely wonderful to read. We're going to drop all those links in the chat. We want to thank you so much for joining us on the Writer's Bridge. And everybody, please feel free to unmute yourselves for a joyful goodbye. Thanks for being here.
thank you.
Nice to have been here. Thank you.
Thanks so much
Thanks,
for having
everybody.
me.
Bye, everybody.
much.
Thank
Super
you
helpful.
so much.
So much.
Very wonderful. Thank you.
Bye, Allison.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thanks.